I can still picture the stunned look on Karen's face when the handcuffs clicked around her wrists. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. It all started on a flawless Sunday morning. I had just stepped outside to admire my freshly waxed Corvette. After 3 hours of meticulous detailing, that cherry-red beauty gleamed in the sunlight like a jewel. Every minute I spent on it was worth the result. That's when I saw her, Karen Westfield, storming across the street with her arms crossed, and that infamous scowl she wore like a badge of honor. Her face was pinched, her pace brisk, and her eyes locked on my car like it had personally insulted her. "Excuse me," she snapped, planting herself squarely between me and my Corvette. "I need the keys to that vehicle." Immediately, her voice carried the unmistakable tone of someone who believed she was in charge of everything and everyone around her. I stared at her, unsure if this was a prank or some elaborate misunderstanding. "Karen, what are you talking about?" "This is my car," I said, keeping my voice steady despite my confusion. She raised her chin defiantly, eyes narrowing. "That's not your Corvette," she hissed. "It belonged to my brother. I don't know how you got it, but if you don't hand over the keys right now, I'm calling the police." She held out her hand, as if I were supposed to just hand them over. Within the hour, the police would arrive, but not for me. I had only lived in Oakwood Estates for 3 months. After years of hard work and saving, I had finally purchased my dream home in what I thought was a quiet, upscale neighborhood. The Corvette parked in my driveway wasn't just a car. It was a realization of a promise I made to myself as a teenager, flipping through car magazines and dreaming of one day owning something that roared with style and soul. What I hadn't anticipated was the reaction it would stir up, particularly from the Homeowners Association, and more specifically its president, Karen Westfield. From the moment I moved in, she made it clear she had a problem with my car. First came the polite notices, carefully worded reminders about maintaining the community's aesthetic standards. Then came the not-so-polite comments whenever she saw me driving by. "That color's really attention-seeking, don't you think?" she'd say with a syrupy smile that never quite reached her eyes. "Most residents here prefer more subtle vehicles." I always responded with a polite nod and a smile, while mentally calculating how many times I could rev my engine without technically breaking noise regulations. But things escalated quickly. Soon, neon color violation notices began appearing on my windshield. One read, "Vehicle in violation of community guidelines, inappropriately flashy appearance." Another warned that my car was disruptive to neighborhood harmony. I pulled out the HOA bylaws and went over them line by line. There was nothing about vehicle color or model, only rules about parking and maintenance. My Corvette was spotless, registered, and perfectly parked. At the next HOA meeting, I pointed this out. Karen barely looked up. She waved her hand dismissively and said, "The board reserves the right to interpret the guidelines as needed for community welfare." Translation: she'd make the rules up as she went along. The real tipping point came when I installed a new exhaust system. I made sure to choose one that was, well, within legal noise limits. It wasn't obnoxiously loud, just a deeper, richer rumble. But apparently, that was all it took. The very next morning, I caught Karen standing in my driveway, phone in hand, snapping photos of my car like she was gathering evidence for a criminal case. When she noticed me watching from my front window, she marched up to my door and started pressing the doorbell like it owed her money. The moment I opened it, she launched in. "Your car is now in direct violation of noise ordinances," she said. "If you don't remove that modification within 48 hours, I'll have it towed at your expense." Her face was flushed with satisfaction, practically glowing from the thrill of asserting control. "Karen," I said calmly, "the exhaust is within legal decibel limits. I checked city regulations before installing it." She leaned in slightly, lowering her voice like she was delivering a threat. "This isn't about city regulations. This is about HOA rules. And as president, I decide what constitutes a violation." There it was, the truth. This had nothing to do with guidelines. It was about her ego. I didn't argue. I just nodded, thanked her for her concern, and shut the door. That night, I installed a security camera pointed directly at my driveway, just in case. Over the next 2 weeks, Karen went on the offensive, She sent out a community-wide email warning residents about individuals who are deliberately disrupting the tranquility of the neighborhood with inappropriate vehicles. She even tried to push through an emergency HOA meeting to revise the aesthetics policy, a blatant attempt to rewrite the rules to target cars like mine. When that didn't work, she moved on to more desperate measures. When Karen couldn't sway the other board members to her side, she began taking matters into her own hands. One Saturday, I caught her crouched near my car, tape measure in hand, calculating the distance between my Corvette's tires and the curb, clearly hoping to pin some sort of parking infraction on me. When our eyes met, she straightened and offered a smug smile. "Just fulfilling my duty as HOA president," she chirped. "Someone has to uphold the standard around here." The very next day, I found a notice taped to my front door. According to Karen, my car was leaking fluids onto the driveway. A blatant lie. I snapped photos of the spotless concrete beneath my Corvette and sent them to the HOA board, disproving the accusation within minutes. But then came the day Karen finally crossed the line, from passive-aggressive harassment to full-on delusion. It was a calm Sunday morning, and I was outside enjoying the sunshine, giving my Stingray a final buff. The hood gleamed like glass. A few neighbors were out as well, walking their dogs or picking up their newspapers, when Karen stormed across the street, her arms folded tightly across her chest like a living blockade. "I'm done playing games," she declared loudly enough for the entire cul-de-sac to hear. "That's my brother's Corvette, and I want the keys. Now!" Her voice quivered with what sounded like emotion, but the overly dramatic delivery made something in my gut twist with unease. I blinked at her, stunned. "Karen, what are you talking about? I bought this car brand new 3 years ago." "Don't lie to me," she snapped, her voice rising. "This is Robert's car. Same make, same model, same color. He passed away last month, and his Corvette disappeared from his garage right after. That license plate frame, he had that exact one. You stole it, and I'm going to prove it." By now, a small crowd of neighbors had gathered nearby, phones discreetly lifted to capture the unfolding drama. I kept my tone steady. "Karen, I'm truly sorry about your brother, but this is my car. I have every document to prove it." I reached for my phone, but before I could do anything, she lunged at me, her hand grabbing at the keys of my fingers. "Give them to me," she shouted, face red with rage. "That car belongs to my family." I took a step back, keeping the keys out of her reach. Her fury only intensified. "You're a thief, a lowlife who moved in thinking no one would catch on." "I'm calling the police," I said firmly, raising my phone. "You've officially crossed the line." Karen's lips curled into a smug smile. "Already did," she said with a perverse sense of victory. "I called 911 before I came over. Reported a grand theft auto in progress. They'll be here any minute." Almost on cue, sirens began to wail in the distance, growing louder as 2 patrol cars rolled into the neighborhood. 3 officers stepped out, clearly trying to make sense of the scene before them. Karen rushed toward them, tears now streaming down her cheeks like she'd rehearsed the whole act. "That's him, officers. That's the man who stole my brother's car," she cried, pointing at me. "I have a spare key at home and all the paperwork. He must have hot-wired or something." One of the officers, a woman with a calm and measured tone, stepped between us. "Ma'am, please stay here." "Sir, can you provide proof of ownership of a vehicle?" "Absolutely," I said, unlocking my phone and opening my digital glove box app. "Here's the title, registration, insurance, and the original bill of sale. My name's on everything." I handed her my phone, and she studied the documents carefully before asking to see the physical copies. I went inside and returned with a folder containing everything: printed titles, insurance papers, and the purchase agreement, all with my name and signature. As the officers examined the paperwork, Karen grew increasingly frantic. "He forged those," she shrieked. "He photoshopped his name over my brother's. Just check the VIN. It'll match Robert's car." The lead officer calmly radioed in the vehicle's VIN number. A moment later, the reply came back, registered to me, clean and clear, for the past 3 years. "Ma'am," the officer asked gently, Do you have any documentation proving your brother owned this vehicle? Karen hesitated. The confidence on her face cracked for a moment, but she quickly recovered. Not with me, she said, voice trembling. But I can show you photos of Robert with the car. It's identical. Same colors, same everything. The officers exchanged a look. Even if your brother owned a similar Corvette, the officer explained patiently, that doesn't mean this car was his. The records and registration all show this vehicle belongs to him, she said, nodding toward me. Karen's face turned a deep shade of crimson. You're not listening to me, she shouted, her voice rising with desperation. He's faked the paperwork somehow. That's my brother's car, and I want him arrested for theft. Before anyone could react, she lunged at me again, aiming straight for my pocket where I'd stashed the car keys. Give me those keys, now. The officer stepped in immediately, pulling her back. Ma'am, you need to calm down, the lead officer said firmly. But Karen was well past the point of reason. You're all useless, she shrieked, thrashing against the officer's hold. That's my car, Robert's car. I'm the president of this HOA, and I demand you do your job. She twisted out of the officer's grip and lunged one final time, actually managing to catch the edge of my pocket and tear it slightly. That was it. Without hesitation, the officers restrained her again, this time with handcuffs. Karen Westfield, the lead officer, said in a calm, steady voice, You're under arrest for filing a false police report, attempted theft, and assault. I'll never forget the look on her face. Pure shock, eyes wide, jaw slack, as if it had never once occurred to her that she could be the one going to jail. This is outrageous, she cried as they guided her to the patrol car. Do you know who I am? I'm the president of Oakwood Estates HOA. You can't arrest me for protecting my property. Except, of course, it wasn't her property, and it never had been. Later that afternoon, neighbors filled me in. Karen had been officially charged on all 3 counts. False police report, attempted theft, and assault. The evidence was overwhelming. Witnesses, video recordings, and most damning of all, a police database search that revealed she didn't even have a brother named Robert. The entire story had been a lie. Her bail was set at $25,000. The court issued a restraining order, keeping her 100 feet away from me and my home. The fallout was immediate. The HOA board held an emergency vote and unanimously removed her as president. Her employer, a well-known local real estate agency with a strict code of ethics, placed her on unpaid leave pending the outcome of her criminal case. Then came the local news coverage. Footage of her shouting, "That's my Corvette," while being handcuffed and escorted to a squad car quickly went viral. Her professional reputation? Ruined. The final blow came 3 months later at her sentencing hearing. Despite hiring a pricey attorney who argued she'd been suffering from temporary emotional distress, the judge wasn't buying it. Karen was sentenced to 6 months in county jail, 2 years of probation, and ordered to pay a $5,000 fine plus court costs. I was in the courtroom when the bailiff led her away. Her face was blank. No fire, no outrage, just a stunned realization that her actions had finally caught up with her. Justice had been served.